Hey, Profe Loco here with another special education moment to answer a question. How can I help a child that is a selective mute? So first question is, what is a selective mute? Well, it's a complex anxiety disorder. That's what you would find in a psychological reference book. There's also other factors involved too, that get pretty complex, especially when the child doesn't talk. Um, there are people that just choose to be silent for various reasons also. When I was working in southern Argentina, I was passing through Buenos Aires and a friend took me by the Capitol building in Buenos Aires, and he pointed out to me a group of women who were the mothers of those who had disappeared during the Argentine Dirty War. And they call themselves Los Desaparecidos, or the disappeared ones. And they march silently every day around the Capitol and the plaza there in front of the Capitol building. And they're doing that as a statement and, uh, and mourning the loss of a child. And so a lot of parents mourn loss of speech for their children that are selective mutes. So, what are some other examples of people being silent? Well, there's psychological trauma, physical trauma that makes a child um, not talk. And the physical traumas are such as I had a student that from the rural part of Mexico moved to the United States, and we found out that at age 2 she had double ear infections where her eardrums burst. So that's a critical time for language acquisition. So from the ages of 2 to 5, she missed that window. So she chose not to speak unless it was in Spanish or Mixteco, her family's native language, an Indian dialect. She would communicate through her sister. Now, twins, I've noticed, the twins that I've worked with also do that also. Sometimes there is a spokesperson for the twins where the other one chooses to remain silent. They even develop their own language and their own sign language, things like that. It's pretty interesting. Um, One of my students chose not to speak because he was so, the anxiety of him not knowing what to say because he was autistic. And when I first met him when he was 5, he screamed all the time due to the sensory integration dysfunction going with the autism, which makes you very sensitive to sounds, touch, smells, things like that. And so, but when he got to high school, he had overcome a lot of that, but was still choosing not to speak very much, and especially choosing to speak in front of a crowd. So I brought him into my fun Spanish class where I would integrate students with special needs into the Spanish class because they're all in the same language learning area, which they knew zero Spanish. So I'd have this young man write up a sports broadcast as he wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And he would write down a script. So we would pretend we were doing a bilingual radio sports broadcasting. So he would have a script that he would read from, a prepared speech, so to speak. And he would pause, and I would translate, speech, pause. And that worked out for him. But he wasn't truly a selective mute, where trauma or anxiety shut down speech entirely. Well, with my students that I had in my classroom, severely handicapped class, what worked best for my students was pet therapy and puppet therapy, because the kids are able to have a non-judgmental third party, in this case the pets, that they can talk to. And I had students that never spoke a word due to trauma that would speak to these parakeets. And we also used puppets that would draw out speech. It's really good in a small group situation or a one-on-one situation with a therapist, but also just with free play on their own, which would really help. Some of the upper level students, we would give, there's a thing called, the teachers called SSR, sustained silent reading after recess, where some of the upper level students could read. SSR, sustained silent reading, teachers called sit down, shut up, and read. And so, but for some of our students, we would give the opportunity for quiet free play with the puppets where they would engage with them, which is pretty cool. Having a relaxed atmosphere, reducing the stress level in the classroom, ambient sound, those things all worked well for my students with selective mutism. This is Profe Loco with another special ed moment. Bye-bye.